Hello. Welcome back to Still Talking About It. I'm the resident evil daughter in law, Janelle. I'm so glad that you're here. Reminder, this podcast isn't just for the daughters in law who have anywhere ranging from a bit prickly to a non existent relationship with their mother in law. It's also for the future mothers in law, which is also us, many of us because we have kids, but it's also for the ladies who are about to become or already are mothers in law themselves. If you've got an open mind and you're not opposed to hearing some things that maybe you don't 100% agree with just yet, or maybe never will, you could be here. You could be here and learn if you want to. And I think that that note is particularly poignant today for today's episode. This will be, when I'm recording this, our fifth episode. We just launched today. I'm recording this on the day that we launched. So far, so good. Hopefully, many of you that listened to that first episode are still here. I'm going to try to keep bringing that same energy, and I hope you'll stick with me. Today, we're going to start with a story time because I think it is so relevant to a question that I get asked often, which is, am I going to be this mother in law one day? How do I make sure that I'm not this mother in law one day? Obviously, I'm not a mother in law yet myself, so I don't ever have a definitive answer until now, perhaps. But I also get a negative comment very often, which is something to the effect of, oh, you'll see one day. You'll see once you're a mother in law. It's not that easy. It's wait till you're a mother in law yourself. I roll. If you're just listening to the audio of this, I rolled my eyes so hard. I nearly gave myself a concussion just now. Which brings me to my story time. My story time comes to you from a DM that I randomly stumbled upon a couple of days ago, and it is from the wife of someone that I went to elementary, junior high, and high school with. Formerly, like a pretty close friend. Him and I were very close friends in junior high for, I would say, the 8th and ninth grade. But this is someone that I've known since elementary school. Like lived in the exact same neighborhood I grew up with. I grew up in, pardon me. She messaged me, and I won't read her message just to preserve privacy, but she essentially said uh, that her husband found my content and saw that she was following me. And then they had a good chuckle about it because much of my content is very applicable to her mother in law and her husband's mom and their lives. She gave me a bit of context that they aren't in contact. It sounds like her husband is still in like very limited contact with his mom, but as a couple that they've decided that because of how his mom has been towards her, that her and their kids aren't going to have a relationship with his mom. And I don't want to include any more details just to again preserve her privacy, but that's probably all the context you need in terms of like what she sent me and what she told me like the state of their relationship is. That brings me to that question and that comment I get all the time, which is, oh, you'll see one day when you're a mother-in-law, or how do I make sure I'm not that mother-in-law? And this time we have the history on, like I said, this is a woman who my mom knew in her 30s. They were both on parent council together. At one point, our family was camping, and his family just happened to be camping as well. This would have been like before him and I were closer friends. We would have been young at this point, like 7 or 8 years old. And but I always knew his mom was like kind of intense, but I didn't really know her. Again, like he wasn't someone that I like hung out at his house. He definitely hung out in my house in junior high. Because my house was like a house that kind of everyone could come to if they wanted to, but I never went to his house. So like I only knew his mom in the context of like anyone that you go to elementary school with because of concerts and different things, like, oh, that's so and so's mom. So then when I got this message from this follower, I called my mom and I'm like, you'll never guess who messaged me. And it's funny that she messaged me, this woman, because I'm still friends with her husband on Facebook, much like we're still friends with like everyone we went to high school with on Facebook. And I saw that he got married and all these things. And I remembered that his mom was intense, but like I said, that's kind of all I knew. And I wondered, I'm like, I wonder what his mom is like as a mother-in-law. Now I guess we know. But I never like dug into it deep. Why would I? I don't care. But because I got this message, I called my mom and I'm like, what was she like when we were younger? What's the context there? And my mom's like, oh, she was crazy. She was crazy. She was a grouch. She was a person in the parent council meetings that like nobody could stand. And she was just like, yeah, she had no self-awareness that like other people weren't living the same life as her. My mom said at one point there was like a parent council meeting. My mom couldn't remember the exact comment, but she said that this mom in question, this follower who messaged me, her mother-in-law, my mom said again, this is like when they're in their 30s. This woman was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't work outside the home, and made some comment about like some other child, not her own, that had always had wrinkly shirts. And my mom knew, again, from like, I don't know, like relationship context there necessarily, but knew that this woman, the mother-in-law in question now, but this is a woman in her 30s with two young children, would like iron every single garment that her kids wore. We went to public school, remember, like there was no like white collared shirts uniform. I get it. If you're, I mean, do what you want to do. Obviously, if you want to iron all of your kids' t-shirts, go right ahead. I don't live that life because I have, toddlers and young kids who get things all over their shirts, and like, yeah, I wash them and put them in their drawer and try to make sure they're not wrinkly, but I also don't lose a wink of sleep if they go to school in a wrinkly shirt. I try to make sure if we're going to like family photos or somewhere a bit nicer that they're obviously in a nicer outfit, but just to like slum it around daycare and school, I'm not worried about it. But whatever your opinion is on it. Anyway, this woman used to like iron every single garment her kids wore, iron their jeans, iron all their t-shirts, and then was making a side remark about some other child that was always had wrinkly shirts. And my mom said, not all of us working moms don't have time to iron our kids' shirts or something. And instead of like in that moment being like, yeah, good point, like whatever, my mom said she was so pissed off and upset about the comment. My mom was like, whoa. My mom just said she was just always so anal and such a grouch. And so she's like, that's not surprising. It's not surprising that she's a toxic mother-in-law. You could see the writing on the wall. And so that brings me to that concern that I know even I've had. Like you never know how relationships are going to go. We don't know who our children are going to end up with. We don't know if our children are going to end up with people who grew up in a family environment much like our own and are going to like seamlessly like just become part of the family and have the same sense of humor and get all our weird quirks and our inside jokes, or if they're going to marry someone or end up with someone or be in a long-term relationship with someone who grew up in a completely different family environment, and had completely different family experiences, maybe has some childhood trauma. Like, we have no idea, and it's going to be on us as the parents-in-law at that point to try to do our best to make it work with that person. People always love to say relationships are a two-way street, and for sure I believe that they are, but it's also none of our control how wide another person wants to make their lane on the two-way street, and in the sense of like how much effort they're going to put in. We can shame and say, oh, they should want to have a relationship with us all we want. Oh, they should be doing this because, oh, she's your mother-in-law. But like, so what? I don't know how far you've ever gotten shaming another adult into doing something that they don't want to do, but I generally don't count on having any success with it. I guess I'm shaming the mothers-in-law sometimes, but anyway, I'm not actually expecting uh any fruit of that labor. Anyway, I feel like that actually gave me some comfort, that follower message, and then subsequently getting the back context from my mom, because yeah, it's the writing's on the wall. And so I would say that, how do we mitigate that? How do we avoid that? All of us have bugaboos. Some of us are more controlling than others. Some of us are more type A than others. Some of us like things our way or the highway more than others. I think it's just important to be really honest with yourself. And that's a hard thing to do. I'm definitely not perfect at it, but I think a few key things that can help mitigate that situation is obviously having a partnership where, because my recollection of this guy who I, like I said, was friends with, the husband of this follower who messaged me, is his dad was like a really nice normal guy, and my mom confirmed that as well, that he was just like he was a totally normal guy. So then I think it's kind of the unfortunate classic case, and gender non-specific, where there's like one more like dominating outspoken partner and the other person's happy to just sort of like follow suit, which is, we can't really change our predisposition on what type of personalities we have, but I think even those of us, I'm including myself, who are more have a stronger personality than others, and my husband's personality definitely is a compliment to mine, he's still aware, and we have a fully open door, open ear policy on if I'm doing something or acting out of pocket, he can tell me, and he should tell me, and I expect him to tell me. And that's the same with parenting. We have like a code phrase that we'll use because we're all human and we all get to the end of our rope sometimes, and sometimes it's warranted that you got to be a little bit firmer with your kids, and sometimes it's like, okay, maybe this is more about you than it is about the kids. Him and I as well, we like tap each other out if we need to, so that we're not, again, acting out of pocket towards our kids when we shouldn't be. And so I think having a part, obviously we can't, like, I don't think people should stay in relationships that they don't want to be in. There's people that are single moms that end up as non-toxic mothers-in-law and end up as great mothers-in-law all the time, but that's definitely a factor. So whether it's a partner that you live with or a network of friends, other family members, you need to keep people in your life who feel like, because you've shown them that they can, call you out when you're acting in a way that doesn't actually align with your goals. I'm going to go ahead and guess that this woman's goal wasn't that she's never laid eyes on her, I think, almost 2-year-old granddaughter. I'm going to guess that's probably not her goal, but sounds like that's her fate. So why did she not surround herself or push everyone away, I'm assuming, who was going to help her reach that goal, even if it meant hurting her own feelings? Having self-awareness is so important. And if you're able, I'm not saying you should be like walking on eggshells and you should be overly critical of yourself. Like I said, we're all human, but it's about trying in the little things, in the continued behaviors, to build trusting relationships with ourselves, with our children, with our partners. Easier said than done, for sure. But I definitely feel comfort in now knowing in the full circle way that someone who's ended up as a toxic mother-in-law, the writing was on the wall when she was in her early 30s. Because my mom confirmed it. Anyway, hot gossip that maybe you cared about, maybe you didn't. Felt like it was a good teaching moment for all of us. We're going to move on to my follower question of the day. I upgraded to an iPad. I still do feel like that person who's reading their best man speech off a phone, but I'm not Alex Cooper and can't upgrade to customized cue cards just yet. Maybe I should, though. Let me know. I'll have to like come up with a logo because I don't want my face on the back of the cue cards. Anyway, follower question. Without further ado, can you help me address this? My husband and I are estranged from his mother and his sister. We haven't spoken to them for well over a year. My husband's brother is having a birthday party for their daughter, our niece. We want to go and have our kids enjoy their cousins, but are terrified to be around his mom and sister, who may also be at the party. What do we do? It's causing me so much anxiety. Love you. Thank you. Sincerely, the evil daughter-in-law. Well, terrified is a strong word, girl. I would say if you're terrified, you shouldn't go. I don't know if that's just like, I don't want to like maybe hang my hat too much on that adjective. Maybe is that an adjective or a verb? It's a verb, right? Terrified? Action word? Ninth grade English is escaping me at this moment. I don't know. I would say if you're terrified to be around his mom and his sister, like when people send me these questions, and that's fine, send them to me exactly how you feel them. That's fair. But these are my initial questions that pop up when I read this what do I do request. My first question is, why are you terrified? What has she done that makes you feel terrified? Is she going to give you dirty looks the whole time? Is she going to cause some sort of confrontation? Is she going to snatch your children and run? Is she going to be physically violent? Is she going to get really drunk and make a big scene? Like, why are you terrified? That's number one, because that's a range. If you're terrified because she's going to just give you looks all the time and you're feeling really anxious because she's just going to have a bad vibe about her, you could probably like mitigate that with some like really strong affirmation words and maybe a fat gummy if that's your thing. That's mostly a joke, but teach their own. But if you're terrified because she's going to be confrontational, then I would say you avoid that hazard. You mitigate that hazard by not going. Secondly, I would ask, which is sort of on the same note as why are you terrified, I would ask, what prompted you to go no contact in the first place? Because that's also relevant. If you went no contact because of one crazy outburst event that happened, which is unlikely, but it does happen, that's why people go no contact, is because of one big pinnacle event, then maybe it's worth exploring. Maybe you have a conversation with her beforehand. Maybe this is, if you really want to go to the party, maybe this is the opportunity that you know, try to make amends with her. I'm not suggesting that you should. I'm just giving you all your options, right? But if it was a death by a thousand cuts situation, hold on, I gotta take a sip. Talking too much on this podcast where my only job is to talk the whole time. Pardon me. If you went no contact, which I suspect is probably more a situation where it was a death by a thousand cuts, then, and why, what were those cuts? Again, that's on the note of like, why are you terrified? What was her main culprit? Was it gossip? Was it confrontation? Was it passive aggressive comments? Was it rude remarks? Was it, could be anything. You need to ask, you need to like, that's to me an important factor in, would you be willing to see this person, in my opinion. Thirdly, I think it's really good that you want your kids to have a fun experience with the cousins, but I would ask, if the sister you're avoiding, your sister-in-law, your husband's sister that you're avoiding, does she also have kids that are going to be at this party? As in, are her kids some of the cousins that your kids are going to be enjoying? I used air quotes, cousins that you're enjoying, for the people just listening, not watching. Because if she doesn't, and it's just the niece and maybe other siblings of the niece, but if it's just your husband's brother, who you obviously have a relationship with if you're considering going to the party, if it's just his kids that your kids are going to enjoy, again, I suspect your husband's brother is aware of the situation if he's inviting you and potentially his mom and his sister, which I don't think he needs to pick a side necessarily. I think it's fine if he wants to invite all those people that he still has a relationship with. But maybe he would understand if you were like, you know what, we really want the kids to have a play with the cousins, but it's too risky for us at this point, given, like I said, all those like blanks we need to fill in about the factors that led into you being no contact. We're not ready yet. Could we bring niece in question? Could we bring by her gift at another time? And the kids could play at that point. I think that's a great option. People don't love when I suggest this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Again, I think this is, again, a factor of where you and your husband are at with it. Sounds like you're both estranged together, and I want to respect that for him. But if there's at all any sniff, whiff, idea that you're going to make things worse, like the husband's brother who's having the party is going to be at all offended for you not attending his daughter's birthday because of the beef with the mom and the sister, people are people. If you want to mitigate that risk, which is something that my husband and I have considered many times, then maybe your husband goes alone. Maybe he goes by himself with your kids. Again, people are going to hear that and be like, you are crazy. Again, I don't know what the terrified is. I don't know what the why is. If you have a mother-in-law who's going to be like so gushy and like all over your kids and then just like makes your skin crawl because she's like getting what she wants. Again, I'm using air quotes. She's getting what she wants in the sense that she's going to see her grandkids and your husband, but she doesn't have to be nice to you. Then yeah, maybe you guys don't go. But it's causing me so much anxiety. If it's causing you anxiety and you're quote terrified, I would say you don't go. And I would say that that's fine. You're not a bad person. You need to be able, like, all the adults in the room who are still having conversations need to be able to have a conversation. For instance, my brother and sister-in-law still see my in-laws in varying capacity. I don't. And depending on the situation, like if they were having a birthday party or some sort of celebration, I would want to be there. I would think that they'd want me to be there. We're pretty close. But if for whatever reason they were also inviting my in-laws, I wouldn't be going. And I wouldn't expect them to like host two gatherings or do anything special because of me. I also would hope that they would, like, honestly, the gathering's going to be more enjoyable for everybody if the energy between me and my mother-in-law isn't in the room. So like I don't feel like I should have to miss out on things because of, how my mother-in-law chose to speak about me, but like that's where we're at. And I'm okay saying like, you guys, this is your life event. You invite who you want to invite. I'm going to have to decline, but I don't want to make this all about me. I'm just I'm not ready. And you offer, if you want to make sure you're still being as kind and forthcoming as you can be, you offer those solutions. Like maybe we can get together a different time. You bring a gift at a different time. But if it's causing you so much anxiety, girl, I think you don't go. Or like I said, consider the fat gummy option. Not if you're driving, or if you're pregnant, or if it's illegal where you live. Again, that's mostly a joke, but I'm not saying it's something I may or may not have tried in recent history and did in fact help with the anxiety. Anyway, okay, turning things around. I appreciate this question. Obviously, there's no black and white answer. I hope that the kind of questions in consideration I vocalized out loud, which I'm sure are questions that you have had yourself about your own situation, are helpful. Like things aren't simply yes or no. A lot of followers of mine would hear me read out this story and their answer would be don't go. Period, don't go. And I'm saying I get that and I hear that, and the people who feel that way, you have every right to feel that way. But to the people who are like, "Oh, but I want to go, but I'm scared to go." Then you've got to choose your hard. You've got to choose your hard. Your hard is going to an event where you're saying, okay, we are on the same team. If any one of these three things happen, we're leaving. We're only staying for an hour. Um, we're not going to talk to her. If she comes up to us, we're going to say, hey, we don't want to cause a scene, but we don't want to talk to you. Or we're going to avoid her, or we're going to make sure we're always in conversation with somebody else. Like you talk about exit strategy with your husband, you talk about strategies for being there. Should you have to go to those lengths in order to exist at any party, especially a family party? No, I get that it's not ideal. But if you're finding yourself really feeling pulled and called to want to go to this function, but you're having those feelings, i.e., terrified and anxiety, then it's potentially workable with some sort of consideration and strategies. Anyway, I hope that was helpful to everybody. I'm so glad that you tuned in, and I will be here still talking about it next Wednesday. If you have a question or something you'd like me to weigh in on, please email it to stilltalkingaboutitpod@gmail.com. I realized when I've shared the email before, I didn't put the pod at the end. So I put pod on it. Still talking about it pod. I'll put it in the show notes at gmail.com. Things to consider if you're going to send me a question. A few people have asked, can they call in? Like, can I do live calls? I know Codependency Kate, she does that on her podcast. I can't remember what her podcast is called. I'm not like in a position to be able to like facilitate and coordinate live calls just yet. I would love to eventually have a segment where we're like on the fly actually chatting about it, but I'm not there right now. For now, we're going to keep going with the written in questions and I'll answer them on the podcast. Please consider when you're writing them in. I know that lots comes out when you want to share these situations with me. And like I said, this one's obviously lacking some what I feel are important details. But I would rather you lack details for the sake of length, depending on the situation. Obviously, use your own judgment. But unfortunately, it's not even just the fact that it's not feasible or conducive for me to share a story that's going to take me 5 or 8 minutes just to read, just because like we're going to lose the plot. It's also, I probably won't even read it if I'm being honest with you, considering this is like a sec, and I'm telling you that so sensitively. Like I said, I am acknowledging and I agree that when we have, that's why I called the podcast Still Talking About It. The dead horse that I have beaten, my sister-in-law and I both, that we have beaten about the situation, she good and dead, right? Like a lot comes out when you start going through these situations and you want to give all the details and the backstory and all that stuff. If I open your email and it's like multiple scrolls for me to get to the bottom, like this is still my third job at this point, and I have 2 kids, and like I don't have the time to read long emails like that just for me to figure out if it's something that I can put in the podcast. And I totally hope you guys understand. I still want you to send me your story, but I want you to write everything out, how you feel, go through it, and edit out the detail. Because if you send me everything thinking, oh, she'll just edit what she wants or she'll just use what she needs to, I probably won't. Like, I probably, unless Robin's listening to this, unless she's volunteering to read all those stories for me, my producer, I don't think, yeah. I hope that's okay with you guys. Okay, this has been so fun. I will be still talking about it next Wednesday. Catch you next time. Have a great week.